Go ahead.
All righty. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much, Rachel, for that lovely introduction. Always good to team up with Zach, who is doing a lot of awesome work in the food access space across the state of South Carolina. And so some of you may have heard of our organization, Foodshare South Carolina, which is part of USC School of Medicine. So I'll be talking a little bit about our work with this program, how we address food access and food insecurity across the space, and kind of dive in a little bit deeper also about some of the program offerings that we have here. And so I'm sure some of you all are aware, we have unfortunately, South Carolina is one of the states that faces a high level of food insecurity. And so, as Rachel talked about being, one of those lifelong South Carolinians, I know my husband would love to move out of the state if it was up to him. But, I say I choose every day to stay home, and try to, change our narrative. A lot of times we have narratives that we're last or towards the bottom of a lot of statistics. And hopefully, eventually, all of us doing collective work, we can move further up on that scale. And so we know we face issues with, affordability, access, right? Particularly when we talk about rural areas, we know transportation is a huge issue, and also that nutrition education piece. And so those kind of three things really is what stem and led to the formation of Foodshare South Carolina. So back in 2015, our founder and first executive director worked at a diabetic health clinic. And at that time, she was seeing individuals come in, they were diagnosed as pre-diabetic or diabetic. And I think, a lot of times when folks go to seek health care, they sometimes don't necessarily hear news that you want to hear. But, you hear, hey, you're pre-diabetic. You hear you've been diagnosed with diabetes. Oftentimes what you don't hear are questions that follow that up with, do you happen to live in an area that has access to fresh fruits and vegetables? Do you make enough money to be able to afford fresh fruits and vegetables, right? Those types of questions usually aren't followed up when we may screen. Now, there's a lot of screenings that happen, right, with patients, in healthcare settings. We don't have those follow-up questions. And so, really, kind of what she thought of was, I'm kind of tired of seeing the same folks coming in and out of, the clinic, and we're not offering a creative solution for them to be able to access food. And so she came up with the development of what we now call our fresh food box. And so that's a box of fruits and vegetables that individuals, and I'll talk about a little bit later, but they can pay with either cash or with their SNAP benefits. So our goal is to make that box as affordable as possible so that, someone who may be on SNAP, or someone, as I'm sure many of you know, a lot of folks have recently, within the past year, has lost their SNAP benefits due to a lot of federal changes, right? But we still want to make sure that cash price, whether they were a former individual who was on SNAP that lost SNAP, or there's someone that, wants to be able to, infuse more fruits and vegetables in their life, but, they want to make sure it's still affordable, that they still can afford one of our boxes as well. And so here you can see our mission. And so that's just on the left, a little example about, one of our boxes. But really, we believe it's more than just a box of food in what we do. And so I'm not going to read the mission to you. I'm going to let y'all see that. But really, we try to have that motto where, we're in the food access business, but we know we're doing so much more than just providing food to the participants as well as the communities that we serve. And then, our goal, our overall goal is just to make sure we're making produce accessible and affordable. So I'll stop here and point out in the picture where the young lady is carrying one of our boxes that we always incorporate a recipe card inside of our box. That's one of the staples, regardless of what food share hub that someone may get a box from, because we have a variety of hubs across the state, which you'll see a slide about a little bit further into the presentation. But our goal is to make sure that we're always trying to provide at least one of the items in the box is something interesting, right? Something maybe you really don't know how to cook. I know here at the Richland Hub, several weeks ago, we did eggplant. And so I know personally I was not very familiar with eggplant. So it was exciting to have, a recipe on that card that showed me, hey, this is what you can do with the eggplant. So I can replicate that at home. And so we usually have about 3 to 4 recipes on each of those boxes. And our boxes are bi-weekly. So we don't do it every week. We kind of say one week is our distribution week. The other week we're taking orders, and then we just repeat that cycle. And so because we have a network of hubs across the state of South Carolina, I always tell folks we move produce on a weekly basis throughout the state. But it may not just be the week we're distributing produce in your community. So our hubs operate on an A and a B week. We're the A week since we were the first hub that launched, and then some operate on our off week. So we're always making sure, produce and these fresh food boxes are getting out throughout the community across the state. And what's in a box? And so when we launched, we started with this small box, which is kind of in the middle of your screen. And then we've grown since. So we actually now here have offered 3 types of boxes. So you see the small, which all of our food share hubs offer across the state, which is the current cost of $20 cash. And you see a price difference that says $5 SNAP EBT. The reason for that difference, we are a participant in a Department of Social Service program called Healthy Bucks, which serves as an incentive program for SNAP participants to stretch their produce dollars further. So you can only get Healthy Bucks at food share hubs, only at farmers markets that are participating, as well as local farmers that are Healthy Bucks vendors. And so you can't go to Publix or you can't go to Kroger or Walmart and say, "Hey, I'm with my SNAP card, can I get Healthy Bucks?" And so that is really what allows us to be able to stretch those SNAP participant dollars further. And so we will swipe, $5 off that person's SNAP card, and then Healthy Bucks, where they will sign a log, covers the other 15. So that is why you see the price difference. So it's not that we're, charging technically 2 different prices, is that a SNAP participant is provided a subsidy, right? Because that's really what that Healthy Bucks Fund is to help subsidize and stretch those dollars further. And so that's why you see the price difference. Same with our large, that cash price is 25, then we have a SNAP price of 10. We also recently introduced a no cook box. And so that is $15 cash or SNAP. And so that has 7 to 9 varieties of fruits and vegetables in our small and large boxes. The standard is 9 to 11, and you'll see the weight difference. So typically, everything that's in the small is also in the large, just a little bit more quantity of what's in that. And so on the left, you can see an example of, what actually went into a fresh food box. So you can see bell peppers and grape tomatoes and lettuce and bananas and zucchini and apples and pears and red potatoes. So, we try to offer that variety inside of that box. What I will say is we always have one shared staple in every box throughout the state, and that's bananas. So one of my coworkers calls it the universal fruit because a baby loves bananas. Same with someone who may be one of our seasoned individuals as a participant, they can eat a banana as well. And so we always have a banana inside each and every box that moves throughout the state, but the other items in the box changes. So it really is up to that hub to kind of making sure that they're responding to what their local community may want. And so we know in the fall time, folks love collard greens and turnip greens and mustard greens. So we try to also be seasonal. So you'll see a lot of that. You'll see butternut squash, acorn squash, those more fall varieties. Right now, when the plentiful harvest of the summer, we've seen several of our hubs for the first time have actually done watermelon in their box. The watermelon does not fit inside the box. It accompanies the box, but a lot of folks have been pleased about having that as an addition. You also see a lot of fresh tomatoes and squash and zucchini, and we're about to do a run of okra soon, as folks have been asking for okra and tomatoes. And so, we really try to make sure that we're, spot on based on what's in season, but also trying to make sure that, we're providing a variety of items in each one of those boxes every time we have a distribution. And then for this is our list of hubs. So I want to make sure you all, can see where do we have food share hubs across the state. And so you'll see, our first one started back in 2015. We're here as our Food Share South Carolina office, but also our Richland hub operates out of this office. Then we launched in Greenville in 2018, and then you can see how the journey blossomed and flourished. And I always like to point out in 2021, that was our highest year of growth, where you see so many hubs launched as part of our program. And I know it'll take us a little back, that was COVID, right? And so a lot of folks for the first time, and being in this space over 10 years, a lot of times, I'm sure you all on this call get it. But sometimes it's a little difficult to talk to folks that we do have food insecurity, we do have food access challenges in the state of South Carolina. But when COVID happened and we saw a breakdown of a lot of day-to-day interactions, we saw how food was so important, right? It was a whole thing to be able to go to the grocery store. It was a whole thing to be able to go to a farmer's market, right? Those became social, right? And we really realized as folks were dealing in isolation, everyone didn't have the same access to food as others in their same community. So we saw a lot of growth in 2021. Where we are going and where we're hoping to, our latest hub was Greenwood. And so we're serving Greenwood County, and that launched in the spring of this year. And we're hoping to launch Florence soon. So Florence has been trying to be a food share hub for years and years and years, and we're finally close to almost making that happen. So we're hoping to launch that in about November of this year. So really excited about where we're going. And again, there'll be some new things that'll be added for 2027 and 2028 and continue down the line as we continue to grow. I will point out, just because you may not see your specific county listed here does not mean that we aren't providing fresh food boxes in your community. An example I will say is Bamberg. Bamberg, the hub is located in Bamberg, but they have what we call partner sites, which are areas where folks can go to actually place their order, pick up their boxes in Allendale County, which all know borders, is in that area, as well as Barnwell County. So they also serve into two neighboring counties, even though the hub itself is physically located in Bamberg. Us out of Richland, we don't have a technical hub in Lexington, but we serve into Lexington County. We also even have a partner site at the Saluda County Library. So we even are serving into Saluda. And so just because you don't see your county listed doesn't mean that, fresh food boxes aren't moving in your particular community. And then this is just a kind of a recap of, our statewide impact last year. As you can see, the number of fresh food boxes that went out, the number of families that were impacted, as well as the pounds of produce that went out into the state through our fresh food box program. And this just kind of shows you a little bit of our model where we have, regional hubs and county hubs. That's some new language that we've come up with, regional hubs. We have some hubs that are like, for example, Richland, where we are doing the packing and the produce ordering for some of our satellite or county hubs, as you see it named here. And so we always say it doesn't matter if you're a satellite hub, if you're a self-operating hub or regional hub. The key is not whether you're packing your box or you're doing your own produce ordering. The key is moving fruits and vegetables out into the community, right? It's that endpoint. Being able to distribute to those networks of partner sites is really what is our most important goal. And the main thing that we care about is making sure folks get that fresh fruits and vegetables, through our box. They get that nutrition education through that recipe card. That's our most concern, not necessarily the level of hub that you may be. And then just to share with you all kind of some other programs that we have. We have here at our Foodshare SC office an 18 station teaching kitchen. We do a lot of class work because we're part of USC School of Medicine. We do a lot of work teaching future doctors about, the importance of integrating not just what you learn in the classroom, but also that nutrition education piece. And then we have a Veggie RX produce prescription program where we partner with 10 clinics currently across the state with individuals who've been diagnosed with pre-diabetes or who are diabetic, and they receive a fresh food box from us for 6 months. So they receive a total of 13 boxes. We do work with that clinic to do A1C testing, weight, some other testing at the beginning before they start receiving those boxes, and then at the end of that 6 months, some post testing. And we've seen a lot of impactful outcomes where folks have, lost weight. They've seen those A1C numbers go down. Some folks have seen other impacts as well. Blood pressure drops, which is another measurement that has been tested as a part of this. So we've seen a lot of, impactful work through our Veggie RX program, which has been around for five years now. And then kind of just allowing y'all to see some of the other things that we offer. We started a good food market. And so we talk about a fresh food box model, but we know in some communities, maybe the box is not the most efficient. So we can set it up, our program up farmers market style. And so we have some of our hubs that are trying to implement this good food market concept in their community. We also have a program called Neighbor Share because we don't want transportation or health challenges be a reason why someone can't have access to a box, right? That's one of the reasons why we started was to combat food access. And so we certainly want to make sure we're doing as much as possible to remove any barriers of entry to our program. And so we work with a wonderful group of volunteers that are faithful and dedicated to make sure those individuals are still able to receive their box. And a few years ago, we had a really cool epiphany and were offered and were allowed by USDA to offer SNAP online. So it used to be someone had to go into a hub or a partner site, physically go and swipe their SNAP card, and then, oftentimes some of them would come back to be able to pick up their box. Now, individuals who are SNAP participants can order from the comfort of their home. They can be on their cell phone, they can be on their laptop, and place their order directly through our Snap online portal for their box. And then this is how you can reach me. This is my contact information. That's my email address. And folks who know me, because Zach knows I don't deal with the office phone. I deal with my cell phone because very rarely am I actually in my office. So this is my cell phone number. So I always tell folks you can call me, you can text me, you can email me. Would love to talk to you all. If you think, hey, you would be interested in learning more about our Fresh Food Box program or any other programs that I share with you all about and how we may be able to partner with you and being able to help eliminate and reduce food access issues across the state. And I saw there were some questions in the chat that it was kind of hard to be able to see